Fake HOA Karen tried to steal our farm. We destroyed her in court. Hey y'all, welcome to another wild ride on HOA Karen Files. I'm Hannah Grayson, a 34-year-old herbalist from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and this is the story of how I fought for my dream and found love against a ruthless HOA that tried to steal everything. For years, I dreamed of owning a piece of land where I could grow medicinal herbs, craft healing tinctures, and live in harmony with the earth. After 12 years of blending teas, grinding salves, and skipping every luxury, new clothes, vacations, even Netflix, I saved $400,000 to buy a 20-acre plot. It was a forgotten parcel with a crumbling farmhouse, a collapsed barn, and fields choked with thistles. But to me, it was Eden. No neighbors for miles, just the Tennessee River glinting in the distance and the whisper of freedom. Or so I thought. Then I met Nate Sullivan, a 37-year-old carpenter with a crooked smile and a heart as solid as the oak beams he carved. He wasn't just the man I hired to rebuild my farmhouse. He became my partner in a brutal war against a predatory HOA led by a Karen named Diane Carver, who tried to steal my land. And, in the process, my soulmate. This isn't just a story about property disputes and courtroom battles. It's about how love can take root in the hardest moments, how two people can find each other while dodging sabotage, betrayal, and even fire. So, grab a cozy blanket, maybe some chamomile tea, and let's dive into how we fought an HOA empire and build a love that nothing could uproot. Oh, and if you've ever dealt with a shady HOA, drop a comment below and tell me, what's the craziest HOA rule you've seen? Let's get this drama started. It was June 2023 when I signed the papers for the land. I grew up in a trailer park on the edge of Chattanooga. My mom a diner waitress who worked double shifts to keep us afloat after my dad walked out when I was 10. She'd spend her evenings sketching gardens she'd never plant, dreaming of roses and lavender. "One day, Hannah," she'd say, "you'll have a garden that heals the world." Her dreams became mine, and every dollar I earned, grinding herbs, selling teas at farmers markets, went toward that vision. The land was a bargain because it had been abandoned for 25 years. No water, no power, just dirt and potential. The listing swore no HOA, no covenants, and I quadruple-checked with the county recorder, a kind woman named Marla who pulled the title and said, "Clean as a whistle, Hannah." I sank $150,000 into a well, solar panels, and permits to restore the farmhouse. The rest would go to rebuilding the barn and planting herb fields, lavender for calm, echinacea for strength, holy basil for hope. I found Nate through a local artisans guild. His work, hand-carved mantels, reclaimed wood tables, was like poetry in timber. When he pulled up in a dusty pickup, wearing a faded denim jacket and carrying a toolbox, I wasn't ready for the way his quiet intensity would stir something in me. "Hannah, right?" he said, his voice warm like a summer breeze. "Heard you're building an herb farm. Can I see the lay of the land?" We walked the property, and I poured out my vision. A farmhouse with an apothecary kitchen, fields bursting with healing plants, a barn for workshops and community healing circles. "That's not just a farm," he said, sketching a layout in his leather-bound notebook. "That's a revolution." Nate quoted me $180,000 to rebuild the farmhouse, shore up the barn, and craft stone paths through the fields. I hired him, dipping deep into my savings but trusting his skill. Over the next 2 months, we fell into a rhythm. I'd bring elderflower cordial and rosemary scones to the site after my market shifts, and he'd show me progress. New walls, a rebuilt chimney, the barn's restored frame. He'd tease me about my mud-streaked boots, and I'd laugh when he sang off-key to Johnny Cash. It wasn't love yet, but it was a spark. I started lingering at the site, stealing glances at his strong hands and the way his hazel eyes crinkled when he smiled. But there was a shadow in Nate's eyes, a story he didn't tell. I caught him staring at the horizon sometimes, his jaw tight, like he was carrying a weight I couldn't see. I didn't push. I had my own scars, a broken engagement to Jared, a slick real estate agent who'd promised forever but left me for a better option 2 years ago. Trust didn't come easy, but with Nate, I felt something stirring, something I hadn't felt in years. Have you ever met someone who just gets you, but you're afraid to let them in? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you're hooked on this drama, Hit that like button and subscribe to HOA Karen Files for more. 3 months in, the farmhouse was taking shape. New roof, rewired electrical, a kitchen with a double oven for brewing tinctures. The fields were cleared, and Nate had started building raised beds for lavender. I was testing a new chamomile salve when Nate texted, "Get out here." Trouble. I sped the 20 minutes from my rental, my heart pounding. When I arrived, I saw a sleek black SUV parked near the barn. A man in a suit stood taking photos, while a woman with a clipboard barked orders at two workers measuring my fence. Enter Diane Carver, the ultimate HOA Karen, with her perfectly pressed blazer and a smile cold as a winter wind. Nate was facing them, his usual calm replaced by a protective edge. "What's going on?" I asked, stepping out of my car. Diane turned, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Ms. Grayson, I'm Diane Carver from Crestwood HOA. This property is now under our governance. You're in violation of multiple codes: unpermitted construction, non-compliant fencing, and unauthorized agricultural activity. You owe $7,500 in fines and $1,500 in monthly dues." She handed me a glossy folder embossed with Crestwood community guidelines. I shook my head, stunned. "I'm not part of any HOA. This land's independent. I have the deed." Diane's smile tightened, her eyes narrowing like a predator sizing up prey. "Our board voted to expand our jurisdiction last month. Your parcel's included. Comply, or we'll pursue liens and seizure." Nate stepped forward, his voice like gravel. "She's got a clean title. You're on private land. Get out." Diane raised an eyebrow. "We'll be back, Miss Grayson." With authority, they drove off, leaving dust swirling. I clutched the folder, my dream cracking at the edges. That night, I called Marla at the county recorder's office. She confirmed Crestwood had filed an expansion proposal, but it wasn't approved. "They can't enforce anything yet," she said. "The zoning board hearings in 5 months." I felt a flicker of hope, but Diane's words, liens and seizure, haunted me. I'd poured everything into this land. Losing it would destroy me. Nate came over, bringing pizza and a notebook. "We're not letting this Karen win," he said, flipping through the folder. "Let's fight." His resolve steadied me, and I realized I wasn't facing this alone. But the folder revealed something chilling. Crestwood wasn't just an HOA. It was tied to Horizon Estates, a real estate conglomerate with a history of buying up rural land for gated communities. My farm was in their crosshairs, and Diane was their enforcer. The next morning, Nate arrived with a plan. "We keep building," he said, "but we need backup. My old college roommate, Tessa Brooks, is a property lawyer in Nashville. She'll look at this for free." I hesitated, worried about imposing. I can't ask her to work for nothing. Nate grinned, his eyes twinkling. "She owes me for dragging her through law school study sessions. Trust me." I could have hugged him for his optimism. Instead, I handed him a peach tart and said, "You're too good to me." Tessa reviewed my deed and the HOA's proposal over a video call. "They're jumping the gun," she said, her voice sharp. "The expansion isn't legal until the zoning board approves it, and they can't force you into an HOA without a covenant on your title. This is harassment, maybe trespassing." She cited the Tennessee Homeowners Association Act, which requires voter approval for expansions, a rule Crestwood was clearly dodging. She drafted a cease and desist letter, demanding Crestwood stop contacting me or entering my property. Nate helped me install 8 security cameras, showing me how to monitor them from my phone. "If they come back," he said, "we'll catch them." Working together brought us closer. One evening, after laying stones for a garden path, Nate suggested a break. He'd brought a picnic, sandwiches, lemonade, and a blanket. We sat in the half-planted field, fireflies flickering around us. The river hummed in the distance, and for a moment, the world felt right. "Why are you so committed?" I asked. "This isn't your fight." He looked at me, his eyes soft in the dusk. "It's your dream, Hannah, and I'm falling for you. Hard." My breath caught. I leaned in, and he kissed me, slow, warm, like a promise. When we pulled apart, I whispered, "I'm falling too." From that moment, we were a team, our hearts entwined with the land. But Nate's shadow lingered. He dodged questions about his past, and I sensed he was holding something back. I didn't push, but my own fears, Jared's betrayal, the sting of broken promises, made me cautious. Could I trust this feeling? Or was I setting myself up for another fall? Have you ever had to rebuild trust after a heartbreak? Share your thoughts below. I'm all ears. A week later, the cameras caught movement at 2 a.m. Footage showed two figures in hoodies near the well, tampering with the pump. By morning, the water was off, the pump's wiring cut. Nate spent a day rewiring it, his jaw tight. This was no accident, he said. We filed a police report, but the footage was too dark to identify faces. The sheriff, a tired man named Hawkins, shrugged. Could be kids. Hard to pin down. I knew it was Diane and her Crestwood goons. Then the notices piled up. Every few days, a new violation arrived. Unapproved roofing materials, for $1,000 fine. Excessive vegetation, $3,000 fine. Diane claimed my farmhouse's new porch, built by Nate, violated aesthetic standards. The fines totaled $15,000, with threats of a lien. I was terrified, but Nate kept me grounded. They're trying to break you, he said. We're tougher than that. Tessa filed an injunction to block Crestwood's actions until the zoning hearing. She also found irregularities in their expansion proposal, signatures from landowners who denied signing. This could be fraud, she said, digging into Tennessee property law records. We need more proof. Nate suggested canvassing neighbors. If Crestwood's done this before, someone's got dirt. We spent a weekend knocking on doors. Most were wary, but a retired couple, the Harrisons, invited us in. Crestwood tried to annex our orchard 5 years ago, Mrs. Harrison said, her voice trembling. Fined us for our apple trees, said they were unsafe. We fought them in court and won, but it cost us $30,000. She gave us a box of documents, fines, letters, and a photo of their orchard being bulldozed by Crestwood's crew. Stop them, she said. For all of us. But the Harrisons weren't alone. We met Lila, a single mom who'd lost her deposit on a nearby lot after Crestwood reclassified it, and Mr. Delgado, a veteran fined for his flagpole. Their stories fueled my anger and my resolve. This wasn't just my fight. It was a war for every dreamer who dared to claim a piece of Tennessee's soil. Have you or your neighbors ever dealt with an HOA pulling shady stunts like this? As Crestwood's attacks intensified, our love grew deeper. Nate was my anchor, repairing the well, rebuilding the porch, even planting chamomile when Crestwood's crew accidentally mowed my first lavender bed. One evening, we found ourselves stuck in the farmhouse during a thunderstorm, the power out. We lit candles, and Nate pulled out a guitar, strumming a soft melody he'd written as a kid. It's about home, he said, his voice low. I shared memories of my mom, her sketches of gardens, her laughter despite the grind. She'd love this place, I said, tears in my eyes. Nate took my hand. You're making her proud, Hannah. I kissed him, the rain drumming outside, and knew he was my home. But a crack appeared. My sister, Ellie, a pragmatic accountant, came to visit. She'd always thought my farm was a reckless gamble. You're throwing your life away, she said, eyeing the notices piling up. Sell now, before you lose everything. Her words stung, and when I caught Nate on the phone, speaking in hushed tones about the old farm, I wondered if he was hiding something. Was Ellie right? Was I blind to another betrayal? That night, I confronted Nate. What aren't you telling me? I asked, my voice sharp. He hesitated, his eyes pained. It's not what you think, Hannah. I just need time. He left, and I felt a familiar ache, Jared's ghost whispering that I'd been a fool. For days, we worked in tense silence, the spark dimmed by doubt. Crestwood didn't relent. One morning, I found a notice nailed to the barn. Failure to maintain fire-safe landscaping, $5,000 fine. The same day, my seed supplier called. Crestwood had canceled my order, claiming I'd defaulted. Nate drove 5 hours to pick up the seeds, refusing my offer to pay. We're a team, he said, but his eyes were distant. The worst came a month later. I woke to my dog, Sage, vomiting in the yard, barely able to stand. I rushed him to the vet, who found antifreeze in his system. Someone poured it near the fence, she said. He's lucky to be alive. I was shaking with rage. Nate held me as I cried, then upgraded the cameras to infrared and added motion lights. They're scared, he said. We're getting close. But the poison wasn't just for Sage. Jared, my ex, showed up unannounced, claiming he'd heard about my troubles and wanted to help. I know people in real estate, he said, his smile too smooth. I can get you a buyer, save you from this mess. I saw through him. He was fishing, maybe even working with Crestwood. Get off my land, I snapped. He left, but his visit rattled me, stirring old wounds. Has an ex ever popped back up at the worst time? Tell me your drama in the comments. If you're loving this Karen-level chaos, subscribe to HOA Karen Files for more. Then came a bombshell. Tessa uncovered a paper trail linking Crestwood to Horizon Estates, which was lobbying to rezone rural Chattanooga for a massive gated community. My farm sat on the planned entrance. This isn't just about fines, Tessa said. They want your land for millions. The revelation hit hard, but it also lit a fire. If Diane Carver thought I'd sell, she'd picked the wrong woman. The sabotage escalated. 2 weeks later, the cameras caught 3 men in hoodies near the barn at 3 a.m., one holding a gas can, another a flare. Nate and I raced outside, him grabbing a flashlight, me dialing 911. Drop it, Nate shouted, his voice booming. 2 men fled, but Nate tackled the third, pinning him until the police arrived. He was a contractor for Horizon Estates, hired by an anonymous client. The police arrested him for attempted arson, but he wouldn't name Crestwood. Still, we had evidence. The arson attempt broke something in me. I started doubting everything. Was this worth it? I was exhausted, my savings nearly gone, my dream hanging by a thread. Ellie's warnings echoed, and Nate's secrecy gnawed at me. One night, I broke down in the farmhouse, tears streaming. I can't keep fighting, I told Nate. What if we lose everything? He knelt beside me, his voice steady. Hannah, you're the strongest person I know. This farm, this fight, it's who you are. And I'm not going anywhere. He pulled me into his arms, and I felt his heartbeat against mine. We'll win, he whispered. Together. But the next day, I found a letter in Nate's truck, addressed to him from a lawyer in Knoxville. It mentioned a family property dispute and HOA settlement. My heart sank. Was he fighting his own battle, using mine as a proxy? I confronted him, holding the letter. What is this, Nate? Are you playing me? His face fell, pain flashing in his eyes. It's not like that, he said. I should have told you. My family lost our farm to an HOA when I was 16. It broke us. I've been fighting to get it back, but it's not why I'm here. I'm here for you. His words hit hard, but they didn't erase the hurt. You should have trusted me, I said, turning away. I need space. For a week, we worked in silence, the distance between us a chasm. I missed him, his laugh, his touch, but trust was fragile, and mine was bruised. Tessa suggested going public. Crestwood thrives on fear, she said. Expose them, and they'll crumble. I posted about my ordeal on a Tennessee homesteading forum, sharing photos of the notices, the cut wires, and sage at the vet. The post went viral, 20,000 views, hundreds of comments. People shared Crestwood horror stories, fines for unapproved mailboxes, canceled deliveries, even threats to seize homes. The support gave me hope, but it also drew a ghost from my past. Jared commented on the post, offering support and hinting he had connections to help. I blocked him, but his words lingered, a reminder of my vulnerability. Nate saw the comment and pulled me aside. I know I messed up, he said, his voice raw. But I'm not Jared. I love you, Hannah. Let me prove it. He handed me a letter, not the lawyer's, but one he'd written, pouring out his heart about his family's loss and his fear of failing me. I should have been honest, he wrote. But I'm all in, now and forever. His honesty cracked my walls, and I let him back in. We sealed it with a kiss under the stars, dancing to a silent melody only we could hear. Nate connected me with a local reporter, Mia Reynolds, from a Chattanooga news station. She filmed at the farm, capturing the fields, the barn, and Sage limping but recovering. This is about every homeowner's rights, I told her. Crestwood isn't protecting us. They're stealing from us. The story aired on a Sunday, and my phone buzzed with messages. Strangers called Crestwood thieves. A retired judge, Clara Vaughn, offered pro bono advice. For the first time, I believed we could win. We organized a community meeting at a local Grange Hall. Over 200 people showed up, bringing documents and stories. The Harrisons shared their court battle. Lila described losing her deposit, and Mr. Delgado spoke of his flagpole fight. We formed a group, Tennessee Land Defenders, to fight HOA overreach. Nate built a website, and I designed a logo, a blooming herb over a fence. Donations covered legal filings for those who couldn't afford them. Every step felt like defiance, and every night, Nate and I grew closer, dreaming of a future beyond the fight. Crestwood fought back. 2 weeks after the news story, I found survey flags along my property line, blue and yellow markers staking out a future community entrance. A man from Horizon Estates, a slick developer named Greg Tate, claimed Crestwood was partnering to build a luxury subdivision. "Your land's in the way," he said, offering $250,000, far less than I'd paid. I refused, but the flags were a warning. Crestwood was planning a takeover. Then came a new notice: failure to comply with annexation, $15,000 fine. They called my farm a public safety hazard and demanded immediate oversight. Tessa called it a bluff, but it shook me. Nate suggested a rally. "Let's go big," he said. We posted a live video on YouTube, walking through the farm and showing the flags, the notices, and the Harrison's documents. "This could be your home," I said. The video hit 150,000 views in days, and supporters flooded the zoning board with letters. The worst came 6 weeks before the hearing. I woke to an alert from the cameras. Footage showed 3 men in hoodies near the barn, one holding a gas can, another a flare. Nate and I raced outside, him grabbing a flashlight, me dialing 911. "Drop it," Nate shouted, his voice booming. 2 men fled, but Nate tackled the third, pinning him until the police arrived. He was a contractor for Horizon Estates, hired by an anonymous client. The police arrested him for attempted arson, but he wouldn't name Crestwood. Still, we had evidence. But Crestwood had one more trick. A week later, Marla called, her voice tense. "Hannah, Crestwood's filed an emergency petition to seize your land, claiming it's a blight on the community. They've got a hearing scheduled in 3 days." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just fines, it was theft. Tessa jumped into action, filing a counter-petition, but the timeline was brutal. "We need a miracle," she said. That's when Nate's mom, Ellen, showed up. A soft-spoken woman with graying hair. She'd been distant since Nate started working with me. "I need to tell you something," she said, sitting us down. "When Nate was 16, our family farm was taken by an HOA tied to Horizon Estates. They used the same tactics: fines, sabotage, lies. It broke Nate's dad. He died a year later. Nate's been fighting to reclaim that land ever since." She handed me a folder, documents, photos, even a recorded confession from an HOA board member. "Use this," she said. "Finish what we started." Nate's eyes were wet, his voice hoarse. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to think I was using you. But this fight, it's personal." I took his hand, my doubts dissolving. "We'll fight for both our farms," I said. "Together." The emergency hearing was a battlefield. 300 people packed the county courthouse, reporters, officials, and supporters holding signs: "Stop HOA theft," and "Protect our farms." Crestwood's president, Edward Klein, spoke first, claiming my farm was a danger and their expansion was vital for community growth. He showed doctored photos of my fields, calling them neglected. Diane Carver sat behind him, smirking like she'd already won. Nate squeezed my hand, his calm anchoring me. Tessa took the podium, presenting our counter-petition. "Crestwood's acting illegally," she said. "The Tennessee Homeowners Association Act requires voter approval for expansions. Crestwood forged signatures, trespassed, and committed fraud." She showed the forged documents, the arson footage, and Ellen's folder. The room gasped when she played the recorded confession from Nate's family's fight, linking Crestwood to Horizon's land grabs. I spoke last, my voice trembling but clear. "I'm an herbalist. I saved for 12 years to build this farm, to honor my mom's dream of a garden that heals. Crestwood has sabotaged my well, poisoned my dog, and tried to burn my barn. They're not protecting Chattanooga, they're stealing it. This isn't just my fight. It's for every Tennessean who dreams of owning land." I presented 10,000 signatures from residents opposing the expansion, my hands shaking as I set them down. The room was silent. A board member asked Klein, "Why did your team act before the expansion was approved?" He stammered, unprepared. Diane's smirk faltered. Another board member, Ms. Rivera, moved to deny Crestwood's petition and investigate their conduct. The vote was 7-0. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Nate pulled me into a hug, whispering, "We did it." Crestwood's expansion was blocked. The county launched a criminal investigation, and Edward Klein resigned. Diane Carver disappeared, her HOA empire crumbling. Tessa helped me sue for damages, recovering $50,000 to repair the well, barn, and fields. Tennessee land defenders grew, helping hundreds of homeowners fight HOA abuse across the state. Nate and I kept building the farm, our love, our future. One evening, as we sat in the apothecary kitchen, sage curled at our feet, Nate took my hand. "Marry me, Hannah," he said, pulling out a ring carved from oak, etched with a tiny lavender sprig. "Let's make this farm our forever." I said yes, tears falling. We married in the lavender field a year later, in June 2024, surrounded by friends from the fight. Marla, Tessa, the Harrisons, Lila, Mr. Delgado, even Ellen, who smiled through tears. The barn glowed with lanterns, and the river sang with crickets. As we danced under the stars, Nate whispered, "This is our home." I knew my mom was watching, her garden alive in every bloom. But the fight wasn't over. 2 months after the hearing, in August 2024, I found a note in my mailbox. "You stopped us once. We'll be back." I showed it to Nate, who pulled me close. "Let them come," he said. "We've got each other." And we did. Our love, forged in fire, was a fortress. We started a nonprofit, Roots of Resistance, to protect Tennessee landowners. Donations poured in, and we hired lawyers to draft statewide reforms, limiting HOA power under Tennessee law. The farm became a hub for workshops, healing circles, and community rallies. Every herb we planted, every tincture we brewed, was a testament to our victory. By April 2025, we'd helped 50 families block HOA overreach, and our story inspired a state bill to regulate HOAs, dubbed the Grayson-Sullivan Act. Looking back, this fight taught me 3 things. First, dreams are worth fighting for, no matter how hard the road. My mom's garden lives in every lavender stalk, every healing salve, and I'll never let anyone steal that. Second, love is stronger than fear. Nate and I faced sabotage, betrayal, and fire, but our love grew through every storm, proving that trust, once rebuilt, is unbreakable. And third, community is power. From Marla's quiet support to the Harrisons' courage, from Tessa's legal genius to the 10,000 signatures, we won because we stood together. No HOA, no Karen. No empire can break a community united. So what's your takeaway? Have you ever fought for a dream against all odds? Or maybe you've got an HOA horror story that needs telling. Drop it in the comments below. I read every one, and I want to hear from you. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to HOA Karen Files for more epic battles against Karens and fake HOAs. Click the bell so you never miss a video, and let's keep exposing these land-grabbing tyrants together. Until next time, keep your roots deep and your heart strong. This is Hannah, signing off from the farm that love and rebellion built.